Hey, hey, yeah. I'm making a change today. The liquor been taking the pain away. I heard you was giving your chain away. That's kinda like giving your fame away. What's wrong with you? I sit in a box where the owners do. A boss is a road that I've grown into. I love you to death, but I told you the truth. I can't just be with you and only you. Yeah, I got one Virgil, got one in that day. It's the only two, man. How many times have I shown it through, man? How many nights I've been woke?
What's going on, guys? It's Mike from BavhausTV, and today in the shop we have this e39 M5. We're going to be doing a bunch of work on it, so I'll probably cut this up into a few different segments, but mostly what the purpose that it's here for is for reinforcement on the rear subframe, diff bushings as well as the solid rear bushing. We're going to be putting all new poly subframe bushings in, four-wheel brake job, starter, and a couple other things. So right now what we're going to do first is actually go release the rear parking brake cables so that when we put the car on the lift to actually remove the entire rear subframe, they're already released and out of the way. We are going to drop everything because we are going to take the subframe out to be welded so it's not up against the fuel tank. And then we're probably just going to press all of the bushings out of the car too. Then we'll put everything back in, put it up on the lift, probably drop the car onto, we have stands that allow us to kind of get underneath the car while it's under load, torque the whole rear suspension under load. We're also doing front control arms. They're known to kind of go bad on these, so those are also going to get done, so those will also be torqued under load. But yeah, let's get started. All right, so we're inside the car now. What I'm going to be doing is getting this e-brake off. I'm just noticing right away that this little wooden cover is a little loose, so something might happen with that. But in order to get this boot off, we just kind of pull on this bracket here, and then there's a little plate on the side that's going to give us access to put some tools on it. So what we're going to do first is try to get this guy out in one piece without marring anything up. Usually you pull up from the bottom on them. But this might actually be the top. Yeah. Okay, so comes to the top. There's two clips that keep this in straight place, and then on the bottom, it needs to be pulled up and out. So, oh, okay, that's why it's loose, because the zip tie's on it, isn't on it. So we'll actually probably fix this for a buddy Elvis before. I'm gonna put this back on. Actually, the zip tie is there. So better off in this situation, we were able to completely remove it. So I don't know if you can see here, that's the tab you don't want to break, so definitely pull here and then pull up. This should have stayed on, but it didn't. All right, so that just revealed one screw right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a Phillips. Figured this shot's better for you guys to look at than looking behind us. So I'm gonna get this Phillips out first. Try to keep everything neat. This car is in super nice condition, so we're gonna kind of treat it sterilely. Okay, so it looks like there's another screwdriver, another Phillips screw down there, and another one back there. So first I'm gonna probably move this down. No seat twist, that's always nice to see. So there's a Phillips right here. So if you're looking at me, it just goes straight behind the seat belt when you put the seat back. It's just a regular BMW trim Phillips. Ones that like hold dashboards in, and E36s, E39s, all that kind of stuff. Have like the little bevel to them. Okay. Coarse thread. And then the last one's gonna be up front, so you might want to drop the seat down as far as it'll go, and then move it forward. Might have to push down on the seat just a bit to get that out. It does sit a little low. Okay, so I think that's all the pushing I'm gonna do in this situation. Probably tried the rest with my fingers. Yeah, it's definitely a better bet. So only do that just to break it free, so you can do finger tight so you're not screwing with the leather as much as possible. All right, move the seat back, and then I'm gonna drop this back. And then right around here, we should just be able to get this plate out. There's a little clip there. And I'm not sure what's clipping it up front. Hopefully it wasn't glued at some point, because it is out of the bracket. So it wasn't glued, it was just stuck. That's good. All right, and then now we've revealed our nuts that we need to remove to actually get our e-brake cables out. So I think it's a 9mm and a 12mm to get these out. All right, so these are our bolts. I went and took a picture with my camera just to have reference to how many threads it's at. So I'd advise you do the same if you're doing this. So what I'm gonna do is probably hold it with the 12mm and then take the 9 and pop it loose. So the 9 is to hold the tension on, the 12. So it's gonna take the 9 off of both of them, which might be more difficult on the other side. Not sure how to go about that. Maybe we'll finish one first. I'm just gonna release that. Okay, this 12 just comes off when it's released. You can add tension to your parking brake by tightening these cables. Some people do it that way. I never do actually here. I normally do it on the rotor. So on the brake shoes, I'll just adjust them to add more tension. Okay, so that should pop in. Okay. I wonder if we'll be able to get that 9 in there like that. We should be able to actually. Okay. Okay, and now I'm just gonna remove the other one. Just like that. And now they should be, for the most part, completely out. So now that that's done, I'm going to remove everything from the car. I'm just gonna start a pile quick of these parts, and we're gonna readjust the car and actually put it up on the lift and start removing some of the stuff in the rear end. So let's go do that now. Alright, so the first thing we're gonna have to remove before we can even start thinking about getting the differential and the subframe out is removing the entire exhaust. It's a really big exhaust. Luckily, this one's got mufflers cut out of it, so it's a little bit lighter than it should be, but we still have these big cats here. And we're gonna have to remove this from the exhaust headers themselves. So before we can even do that, we have to remove this transmission shield. These should just be quarter turn or single turn Phillips head screws. And we're gonna definitely get this skid plate off. We're probably gonna take the front one off as well because we're gonna need to have it off later. So those 4, you got 2 more up here in the middle. And then further up, there's 2 more. So these sit right in front of the control arms, the lowers. So I'm just gonna pop this off. It's probably gonna be full of stuff. I can hear some stuff crunching around, so see what falls on my head. Another thing I wanna mention is that we are gonna be removing there's one more here. There should be another one here, I think, but it's broken off. Since we are doing a lot of rear end work, and we're gonna be pulling a lot of weight out of this car from the rear. Probably what we're gonna do is put the tranny stand at least under while we're pulling on stuff in the rear. just to make sure that if something happens with the lift or while we're removing the exhaust and pretty much all the rear end weight, that we don't have, you know, this giant V8 nose dive in the ground. So definitely keep that in mind if you're doing this. The front should be propped with something for the majority of the time, unless you're physically doing something at a moment. Don't just leave it hanging. I'm noticing the transmission is leaking fluid from somewhere, so I'm gonna have to notify the owner about that, and we're gonna have to get that checked out. But what we're looking at right here is actually these 2, 4, 6, 8 bolts, and that's gonna release the front half of the exhaust. And then we have this transmission bracket, which in this case is not gonna, or it will interfere with this. So we're gonna remove these 10mm screws that actually hold in this bracket that holds that skid plate in place. So then we can just disconnect this bracket from the transmission and drop the whole thing without messing around with these rusty bolts. It's gonna be a lot easier to go for these than to go for these, so just keep that in mind. If you have multiple options, always go for what's easier, not what makes more sense just by looking at it. After that, we're gonna go disconnect our O2 sensors. Actually, we can just do that now. You have the O2 sensors here with these little covers, and this cover is actually one that's held in by a 10mm. So it looks like we need a 10mm. I'm gonna go grab the 10mm and we'll just remove all the stuff we just talked about. All right, so we're gonna go after these brackets. These have like little stubby metal nuts. They're nuts that go into like coarse thread. We'll see for heat shields. They're nothing impressive. So just one on each of them, and that'll take these out, and that'll get them out of the way of this bracket. I'm gonna release that. So another thing about the front end, you kind of want to reduce as much weight as possible. So what we're gonna do is actually take the front wheels off, not only because we're working low and I don't want to hit my head on them, but just getting the extra weight off is just gonna be another, you know, peace of mind to ease us removing that rear end. So now I'm taking the cover off of the O2 sensor. You have 2 plastic nuts that go into those body kind of threads, and that's going to release this bracket. Under there we're going to have our sensors, and we're just going to unplug them both. They should be, the sensor should only fit one sensor in general. So what we're going to do is, oh, somebody already marked them. So you got white and white on this one. So all we have to do is pull it apart. This one's gonna go with the exhaust. This one you gotta take off these little shields there and let it hang like that. So now we're just gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay. Oh, it's running away from me. I'm gonna go grab that. Okay. Get those out. This one's marked white and white, so we're good on that. Again, out from the heat shield, let it hang. And then if this one is already disconnected, it is a little hit back here, so I'm gonna shoot the owner a picture of that just so he knows that this O2 sensor might be causing problems. And now what we're probably gonna do is disconnect the transmission mount, and we're gonna have this brace back here holding it in place for a little bit. We're gonna have to remove that brace where it ties into the rear suspension as well, so we're probably gonna chase that whole thing once we get the tranny stand underneath this thing, and that's gonna be kind of what holds this thing in place while me and Justin are both probably gonna grab this and pull it out. So I'm gonna go get 2 13mm just so we can get this tranny brace off of the transmission, and then we're gonna actually move on to getting the header bolts off before we go back there. All right, so now we're just going to break these free. So this way it's just gonna lower with the entire exhaust to keep it all tied up. So we're just gonna get these both. Okay, so this one is getting some tension on it, so I know that it's going to lower a little bit already from the tranny. You just kind of need to finesse it out. I wish I can just use a little pry. Cool. So then the next thing we're gonna do is get the downpipe bolts out. So these are pretty rusty. We got two that are locked in the back where they're welded on. What we're gonna do is get a 13mm, and I'm gonna do this by hand first. It just seems like the smarter way to go about it. So let me do that quick. I'm just looking at the side of this transmission trying to figure out where it's leaking from. And honestly, I can't really tell. Looks like it's actually leaking from the slave cylinder, which is strange, or the housing next to it, but we'll figure that out in a little bit, I guess. All right, cool. I'm gonna get some penetrating oil too. We're just gonna spray them quick, let it sit for, not enough time because I am gonna jump the gun on that, and then we're gonna get them out with a 13mm on a wrench with some torque on it. All right, so these are gonna get some penetrating oil inside in the back because these are bolts and then the other two are nuts. So that exhaust studs always suck. These you can get from here. Spray in between, spray the thread. Okay. Definitely get up there. Get up there. In there. And you can even get the back of these bolts. Not a dumb idea. Get as much as you can on this. That one's gonna be easy to get to. Oh, I got it. Okay, cool. All right. So let's see what a 12 feels like. 12 feels good. So how's it feel in the? Okay, cool. So we're gonna start with bolts probably. And like I thought, they're gonna be insanely tight. Okay, so see what the nuts feel like. All right, everything's gonna be really tight. So that being said, I'm gonna get a cheater bar. I'm gonna see if we can add some torque. All right, so I have a cheater bar. Let's see if this works. All right, that sounded good. Gonna go easy, even pressure so we don't start breaking bolts, and I can already see this one unthreading from the back, and that's exactly what we're going for. So just get it to the point that it feels a little easier. We're gonna switch to the next one, and this one came out very easy now too. The nuts are usually where things go bad, so see how that goes. And that feels like it's gonna go bad. So these we might add some heat to. I'm gonna tighten it a little bit, and I'm gonna loosen it and see if that bolt is turning with it. All right. Definitely keep an eye on this stuff when you do it, because one wrong turn becomes a very large issue usually. So that worked out good. We're gonna have to go over here. These are studded from the back, so if these break, you have to hammer them out, put bolts in. It's a whole process. So I know any of you guys who worked on E46, anything, know what that's like. Those are always breaking on you. If you ever have to do an O2 sensor, miserable. All right, so this might kind of come down a little bit. I'm not too worried about it because we still have that big center plate in the back. It's gonna hold the exhaust up for the most part. So if this starts dangling, we're actually doing it all right. But I'm trying to figure out where I want to put that tranny support, and I think it's gonna go right in that X pipe in the back, kind of where it splits in the exhaust. I have a stupid base plate lift, so I can't go right under these cats. So I'll probably have to hold them by hand. Alright, all this hardware should be replaced as well, which we're gonna advise. These are right before it gets too much to do. Like, these are like on the cusp of being too rusted to actually take out, so we got lucky. But if you don't replace them, then you just pretty much start over. Perfect. So that entire one is done. We're gonna move over to this side now. This side has had a little bit more time to sit, so let's see what happens. Yeah, these are going way easier. And I spoke too soon. So that one broke, and of course it's the one that we're gonna have to hammer out. So one side's at least gonna have to be repaired. Figure out what bolt goes in there. Yeah, it completely snaps. All right, I'm gonna get this 12 millimeter recovered, and then we'll take it from there. All right, so since that one went, surprisingly this one just came out no problem at all. So one has to be done. I'm gonna ask if he wants to just repair the one or do all four or whatever the case is, but pretty typical with these older exhausts. You can tell this one hasn't been off in a long time. Get that out. Yeah, that one broke pretty easily too, so I think something must have been prying on it in the past. Didn't even get to the point where it allowed me to look to see if it was going to spin. Okay. Yeah, these bolts look better. This is interesting. So normally what I do to actually get those studs out when they break like that is just go with a hammer and knock them out. You can take an air hammer, but usually one good blow with a really good hammer works. If that doesn't work, then you're going to need a blowtorch, so we're going to have to move this starter cable. Yeah, 'cause the starter should be right here, and we're gonna have to be doing it. Yeah, it is. So that's gonna be another project. So getting this exhaust out of the way is actually good for that whole process as well. Okay. So this one came out. This one's gonna need to be pried. That one's gonna need to be pried. That one's gonna need to be pried. So I'm gonna go get a pry bar. Okay. So these are flexing, but. And why is this one hanging on? Well, it looks like it's gonna come, so we're not gonna worry about that right now. I think one thing that is gonna give us a slight interference. You can see that these are actually already changed. Is this bracket on the trans. So it doesn't have to be removed, but I think just for my peace of mind, I'm just gonna get the bracket off and then we'll put it back on later. You're gonna be moving it back anyway, so it really shouldn't interfere, but I just don't want anything that's kind of even close to looking like it can hang up. All right, and then now we're gonna move back just a bit and actually start taking apart the stuff in the rear. All right, so a few things that we're going over this M5 for is actually to reseal the shaft seals on the output shafts of the differential as well as the input shaft. Also give this bushing up front a solid mount bushing because just a little vibration in the drive shaft with this current bushing actually causes it to completely shear off of the rear end. So that subframe is going to get welded, it's going to get a solid mount, brand new diff bushings, all new bushings just for the subframe itself. Those are going to go polyurethane, and then we're going to be like rebuilding the diff, or at least resealing it. So that's just a quick what we're getting into. But what I'm going to start with is actually putting this tranny stand right here, and what that's going to do for us is actually hold this transmission up while we remove this bracket behind me, and then actually the exhaust clamps in the back. Like I said, there's no muffler, so it's going to be a little bit easier back there than it normally would be, but it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so we're just going to go until it touches. I'm going to get 13 millimeter, and we're going to go all the way back and remove the exhaust clamps in the back first. Okay, 1. Two. Here we have 2 more. 3. Next thing I'm going to go after is actually those 2 brace bars that go to the rear suspension. It covers these where I'm going to actually need to get to bolts that are under there. So we're going to get this one off. Luckily everything back here is 13. So pull this 13. It shouldn't be too long. Yeah, actually they are long. Okay, but the thread isn't. Then we have this one here. And then we're going to move back up here, and we have these 4 13s right up in the center. Just going to crack these loose first, all 4 of them, see what kind of happens. That one feels a little weird. So these braces are going to come off, but this plate is actually going to stay with the exhaust. Something's up with this one. I don't know why this one is being strange. I think it's going to break. Yeah, somebody cross-threaded that one. I don't know what to do about that. Hopefully we can just cut the thread out. See if it might not even be coming. I'm gonna tighten this one.
Looks like it's spinning.
Yeah, it feels like it's, thread welded up in there.
Okay, maybe it's loosening
I
up.
got it for you.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, definitely cross-threaded on the end. You can see it's like almost like magnetic. There's a whole.
Can't see it in the picture, but
Yeah, there's a whole thread that's cut out of it. one hole missing thread. So we'll order another one of those and then tap that. Yeah, it's completely off. You might have the front end drop. There's nothing holding this up right above you, so I'm just gonna get these last two bolts out, and I'm gonna go and actually start holding the front, and then I'm gonna have Justin actually come to the back and start holding the tailpipes. All right, so just gonna move some stuff out really quick, but what we gotta pretty much do is lower this, and as it lowers, Justin's gonna support the front. It should bring the whole exhaust out, but I think in the rear, we're caught up on those, the brackets, just so I need to go kind of help the rear out. So there's like some weird tab, I'm not sure what it does. And I think that's what's holding these things in. And the only other option is actually to take this bolt off, but then this trunk pan's in the way. I'm gonna get a screwdriver quick and try to guide this out and see what I can do. There's another set of hangers back here, and I think that's what's holding it all in place. So I'm gonna go take those other hangers out. The 13 on the side. And I think the whole heat shield is gonna come out with it. So I'm just right now moving the heat shield out of the back bumper, making all the clearances right. So that when it comes out, nothing's gonna interfere with anything. I'm gonna keep going down. And that should pop out at some point for you. Okay, I'm gonna go back up there and pry.
You want to try?
There we go.